Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Pride is the inordinate love of the self and self. It is the identity fashioned by and established on pride. Merriam-Webster defines inordinate as an exceeding of the limits dictated by reason or good judgment. As for identity, Wikipedia gives us a good explanation. Identity is the qualities, beliefs, personality traits, appearance, and/or expressions that characterize a person or a group. Identity emerges during childhood as children start to comprehend their self-concept, and it remains a consistent aspect through different stages of life. Identity is shaped by social and cultural factors, and how others perceive and acknowledge one's characteristics. One aspect of denying the self, and perhaps the most important, involves examining our identity openly and honestly, and bringing into question those things that offend us. To put it plainly, what makes us angry? What is it we take issue with and why? I can honestly say that in my lifetime, I have never seen as much division as I see today. Division is caused by offenses or issues, which again are most often based on pride, especially in this society. We may spend a great amount of time and energy justifying them, but the truth is most of them are not justifiable. Jesus said, "Woe to the world because of offenses. For offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes." The transliteration of the word offense is scandalon, which the Vine's Expository Dictionary states is always used metaphorically and ordinarily of anything that arouses prejudice, or becomes a hindrance to others, or causes them to fall by the way. Offense arouses prejudice, becomes a hindrance to others, and causes them to fall by the way. Interesting progression, which agrees with Proverbs 16:18. No doubt, this is quite accurate in describing today's political, economic, social, and religious arenas. And how is this prejudice propagated? It is usually by our words, that is, by what we say. Proverbs 18:19 tells us, "A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a castle," going on to say that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it, that is, either death or life, will eat its fruit. This statement gives us a key to understanding in the phrase, "those who love it." What is pride? The inordinate love of the self. Paul said this, "For I say, through the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith." See our phrase, "think soberly"? Strong's defines soberly as to be of sound mind, that is, sane. Sane? Yes, which Oxford Languages defines as of sound mind, not mad or mentally ill. Not mad? Yes, as in offended due to thinking more highly of ourselves than we should. Love of the self. This explains why it is so difficult for us to overcome our offenses or issues, for love is the most powerful force in the world. Now consider what Paul wrote in the following. "This being so, I myself always strive to have a conscience without offense toward God and men." What did Paul say? He strove to have a conscience without offense toward God and men. A conscience without offense can only be obtained through humility, and more often than not, humility is attained through suffering. What is quite amazing about the self is that, at its most basic level, it consists of thought or thinking. To be even more specific, it consists of belief. Self is who we think or believe we are, based on the things that have taken root within our hearts and minds. For this reason, Jesus likened our inward essence to trees which bear fruit. Is who we think we are important? Of course, but only when it is fashioned by a sound mind, a mind free of anger, which in turn must be free of pride. Please consider, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity, that is, anger and opposition against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then, those who are in the flesh cannot please God. Paul is clear. The carnal mind is enmity, that is, hostility or anger against God. And this is always due to pride. For this reason, Paul identified the coarse and haughty spirit of this world as that which makes us children of wrath. Offenses are issues, and issues are created by values, by what we deem as important in our lives. Jesus likened our values to treasure, stating, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." As children, many of these values are instilled in us before we can truly understand them. So, this begs the question, who put the value on our values? This is a good question to ask when examining our issues. For if a value or values stem from pride, it is most likely unworthy of our energy and attention. What did Paul say? He strove to have a conscience without offense toward God and men. How can we achieve such a conscience? By examining our issues, which are the reasons for our offenses. In our next video study, we will continue our examination of self-denial.